honorable sisters, brothers, and friends. There was a Greek orator who was so good he would practice reciting verse and even poetry with pebbles in his mouth. English is not my first language, and it definitely is not my preferred language. I have difficulty with languages. I can do what's called a complex, impossible solution in theoretical mathematical physics, certainly in 2 weeks' time. But after 2 weeks of a language, I'm practically the same as the first day. Now, that's also true of my English. Guttural English is guttural language. And I like the joke of when I was in South America, and I figured, well, I'd go up to the language department and see if they spoke some English. And there was a gentleman there with a fine suit and jazz bow tie. And I said, I want to confer with your scientists here at this great university. He said, I said, do they speak English? And he said, oh, most of them do, yes. And he then looked at me and he says, Kebuka. And I thought he says, well, what's your name? So I says, Dr. Castellano. Dr. Castellano. In inglese dice doc. It's abbreviation. And he says, Doc Castellano? And I says, si, professor. I thought he was one of the top professors. And he says, he looked at me and he says, no. I says, professor, certamente. I think to say Italian, I don't know if it's Spanish. I says, Doc Castellano. He looked at me and he says, Castellano. He says, no. So I said, oh, professor, certamente, say Castellano. He says, I'm not only a professor, he says, I'm in charge of this language department. He says, I teach English and Spanish, English, I think French. He said about 5 or 6 languages. He says, and I've asked you to try certain languages. You don't speak Spanish. He says, you don't really speak good Italian. And he says, and you try to do words in German, you don't speak German. He says, in fact, your English isn't even good. So I said, well, I have to agree with you. So I says, but Castellano. He says, no. So I took out my wallet, and took out my ID, and I says, see, Doc Castellano. He says, oh, so your name? And I says, yeah. He says, no, I was asking you if you had a certain dialect you speak. He says, your name is Castellano, and Castellano. And I said, oh, Castellano. He says, oh, it's Castellano. And he says, here, and he fixes his jazz bow tie. He says, here, we don't speak Spanish, we speak Castellano. Same spelling as my name, he says, yeah, we speak here Castellano. So I says, gusto questo paese, tu hablas mi lengua. I like this place, everybody speaks my language. Now, I start a sentence, and I detest English so much that maybe I chop the sentence, certainly, and even the words. So I started to say, I'm thinking back now, I'm doing this without prepared notes. I started to say one of the goals of Russia. And then I went right to what is current. What I meant is, of course, that one of the goals of Russia is to not be constantly pressured and hemmed in that they're going to be, at best, a second-class nation to the U.S. They're not going to allow them to be where countries look up to them and say, hey, look, this is now a new modern Russia that deserves the respect and work with, of course. I mean, it's part of Europe, and even part of Asia. They will grow. And I'll be blunt. Well, see, now I stop in what I was saying. So, one of their goals is to obtain this recognition that they're really good, personally and as a nation. But I said one of their goal, I forget now exactly, is not to hoard money. They've been for years. I would talk to some of the ladies there, really, and they would say there was a question of survival. Things got so bad. And I as I recall, and I got to practice, I noticed that the Greek alphabet, which is used in science, and the Russian alphabet is similar. And I always say, there's the saying, if you don't understand a language, well, that's Greek to me. That's a saying. So it helped a little bit. And I got to where I would practice and write using spell check like of certain languages. But now I'm not speaking to ladies. I'm just speaking to leaders. And of course, you are professional, and I'll strive. I won't wear a big suit, maybe in a jazz bow tie. I'll just wear a business suit, and say what I'm forced, how I speak, because how the conditions I've been forced into. They have forced me to be a gutter fighter, do you understand? I try to survive. I am not alive because the criminally insane King George, Queen Hoover, not that hypocrites. It's a hypocrisy, not a democracy. It's the King George, Queen Hoover hypocrisy. That's a true fact. Barely survived 6 accidents. You understand? So most of the time I'm trying to be reserved, to not get personal of what I would really should call them and say what they are. I'll quote what somebody else says they are usually. Not all the time or usually. Now, what I meant as far as the Sunday comics, this has been known for years. Maybe it's showing my age, but they would always say something about lucky bucks. If somebody didn't have real money, they'd say, well, I'll match you. What? $5. Well, I don't have any money. And somebody would say, oh, between you two gents, you don't have $1 between you. What are you going to use? Lucky bucks? That was imitation dollar bills. They would also say about, you take the comic section of the Sunday newspaper and you cut that and you make dollar bills out of it. And this is kind of a joke, So I said, if Russia wants U.S. paper money, I'll give you paper money. I'll take the Sunday comics and I'll cut it up into the size of dollar bills. And I'll print on them, this is a 1 and a 5 and a stack of 1s and a stack of 5s and a stack of 10s and a stack of 20s and a stack of 100s. Yeah, well, come on, that's a joke, yeah. But their money is a joke. And I'm not joking. They got people in South America giving them gold, dying in bad mines, getting hurt and injured, working 6 days a week, long hours, to get the gold because they got them so oppressed. They'll ship the gold up to the U.S., and the U.S. prints dollar bills and gives it to them. I know. I had a little gold, and I told the guy, I'm getting low on money, but I brought a little gold with me because gold, internationally, he says, it's against the law here. He says, it's dollar bills. I said, but you mine gold here. He says, yeah, but we ship it up to the U.S., and then they send us the dollar bills. Do you understand? What the U.S. is doing is printing day and night this paper money and saying, we got this paper money. You go over there and you kill somebody or you war with somebody. You get on their border because we want you to be a loose cannon against that country. We don't want that country to get back as good as us. As good as us as far as monetary consideration. As far as principle, that ended way back in the 1950s. That the U.S. is just a hypocrisy. Do you understand? That's the reality. That's the reality of today's world. Russia, China, any country should say, we don't want your gosh damned overnight printed paper. It's printed on high-class money, but it's printed paper. And sooner or later, your house of cards might fall, or will fall, or certainly might fall, and then we're stuck with tissue paper. We want what you say backs your money, and what's supposed to back money is gold. You say for every dollar you have a dollar's worth of gold in reserve that backs that dollar. That's why that dollar is good. We don't want the printed paper. We want the gold. We want the gold now. Do you understand? And their gosh damn corrupt, criminally insane, holistic ass is broken. They'll have to beg. Like they forced me to beg for work. I ain't trying to work. All the great things I've done and the money I should have. They'll have to beg that you don't do that because their house of cards would collapse. To any who understand and agree with me, I say thank you.